doing this in 3 minutes is like when an editor tells you you've got to reduce your 10,000 word paper by 750 words. And it's like, no, I'm not cutting it. And you find the end, yeah, that's got to go. All right. Despite a lot of historic skepticism, the connection between biology and political behavior really didn't first receive a lot of attention until about 2005, when there was an article that appeared in one of our top journals that suggested that political ideology is at least partially genetically heritable. Now, this really opened the door for a lot of other studies, a lot of other genetic studies, as well as studies that started looking at things like physiological responses to political stimuli, and studies that used evolutionary theory as a mechanism for generating hypotheses about political behavior, which is where I get into this. So it was just a few years ago when I first ventured into biopolitics. And I was talking to my 6'7" grad student, one of my favorite students, about the idea that the taller of two political candidates often wins the political election. Now, you guys have probably heard about this. And it's not quite that simple, the explanation, when you start getting into it. But basically, evolutionary theory allows you to have a nuanced explanation of why this could possibly be the case. And a lot of it really comes down to the fact that how we compete for important resources. So to make a long story fit into a 3-minute presentation, I'll just leave it at this. That after a few studies, what I found is that indeed we do have a preference for more physically formidable leaders, and it seems to be triggered by some sort of external threat when we're making these decisions. So that was my past research. What am I working on now? Presently, I'm in the middle of a study looking at the connection between testosterone and corruption, and we found in a large multi-nation data set that aggregate levels of testosterone in a country are related to that country's level of corruption. So that's one thing. The next thing I'm looking at pathogen prevalence. In particular, I'm looking at levels of flu and how the levels of flu in an area affect its voter turnout. Our initial analyses look at this and show that indeed, as flu levels go up, voter turnout goes down. So what am I thinking about in the future? Pathogen threat. There is some really interesting research out there that shows, for instance, that opposition to gay rights is tied into things like disgust sensitivity and fear of disease transmission. There's other research out there that shows that fear of diseases is related to things like xenophobia and international conflict. So, get to why I think this is important. You know, I've watched this. I used to work in politics. Politics have become toxic. Political opponents used to be people that we just simply agreed to disagree with. But many times now people see them as people who are being intentionally malicious. And who on earth wants to negotiate and compromise with somebody, which is what democracy asks us to do, with somebody we think that is being intentionally nasty? So one of the things that motivates my research is the idea that our politics will be less toxic and will be closer to the ideal of democracy if people understand that political behavior is not 100% within our conscious control. Not only do we learn our political behavior, but it's also subject to biological mechanisms. So all I'm asking you to do today is help me save democracy. Thank you very much.